Hello everyone, this is Natalie Joy Morales and I'm going to talk about energy sources of life which help sustain life in the universe. The list on the screen are the subtopics from my report. Let's talk about osmotic gradient first. It is the difference in concentration between two solutions on either side of a semi-permeable membrane and is used to tell the difference in the percentage of the concentration of a specific particle dissolved in a solution. Osmosis is a process by which the molecules of a solvent pass from a solution of low concentration to a solution of high concentration through a semi-permeable membrane. Osmosis is a very vital process. It helps in stabilizing the internal environment of the organism by balancing the levels of water and intracellular fluids. Also, the nutrients and minerals enter the cell by osmosis, which is necessary for the survival of the cell. Any solvent can undergo the process of osmosis, including gases and supercritical liquids. The semi-permeable membrane, also known selectively permeable membrane, allows a certain molecules or ions to pass through it while blocking others. The rate of osmosis is determined by the total number of particles dissolved in the solution. The more the particles dissolve, the faster the rate of osmosis. Osmotic pressure is the pressure required to stop water from diffusing through a membrane by osmosis. We can calculate the osmotic pressure through the equation pi is equal to mRT, where pi denotes the osmotic pressure, m is the molar concentration of the solute, r is the gas constant, T is the temperature. There are three types of osmosis. The first one is the hypertonic osmosis. When water enters the cell because the concentration solute molecules outside the cell is higher than the concentration inside the cytosol. The second one is isotonic osmosis. When the water diffuses into and out of the cell at the same time, so there is no movement of water. And the last one is hypotonic osmosis, when the water diffuses into the cell until equilibrium is maintained. And and these are some of the significance of osmosis. Osmosis influences the transport of nutrients and the release of metabolic waste products. It is responsible for the absorption of water from the soil and conducting it to the upper parts of the plants through xylem. It stabilizes the internal environment of a living organism by maintaining the balance between water and intercellular fluid and fluid levels. It maintains the turgidity of cell. This process controls the cell-to-cell diffusion of water and induces cell turgor, which regulates the movement of plants and plant parts. Now let's talk about extreme magnetic field. What is magnetic field? A vector field that describes the magnetic influence of electric charges in relative motion in magnetized materials. The effect of magnetic field are commonly seen in permanent magnets, which pull on magnetic materials such as iron, and attract or repel other magnets. Magnetic field exerts a force on particles in the field due to the Lorentz force. The motion of electrically charged particle gives rise to magnetism. The force acting on an electrically charged particle in a magnetic field depends on the magnitude of the charge, the velocity of the particle, and the strength of the magnetic field. Standard SI unit of magnetic field is Tesla in honor of Nikola Tesla. A smaller magnetic field unit is Gauss. 1 Tesla is equals to 10,000 Gauss. Tesla is defined in terms of how much force is applied to a moving charge due to the magnetic field strength produced by a long straight current carrying wire This is one of the simplest cases to calculate the magnetic field strength from the current. We have the constant mu, which is the magnetic permeability, and I current is the current in the wire, and B is the distance from the wire. Earth's magnetic field. Earth's magnetic field is caused by a dynamo effect. On Earth, flowing of fluid metal in the outer core of the planet generates electric currents. The rotation of the Earth on its axis causes these electric currents to form a magnetic field which extends around the planet. The magnetic field is extremely important to sustain life on Earth. Why? Without it, we would be exposed to high amounts of radiation from the sun, and our atmosphere would be free to leak into space. The north pole of a compass points to the Earth's geographic north because it is south magnetic pole. Magnetars, powerful magnets in the universe. A magnetar is a type of neutron star and has a magnetic field as strong as 10 to the 14 to 10 to 15 to the power 15 Gauss, making it the most magnetic object known in the universe. To put things into perspective, here is a comparison of its field strength to other magnetic objects. Earth's magnetic field, which deflects compass needles, is equivalent to zero point 0.6 Gauss. A common commercial magnet is equivalent to approximately 100 Gauss. Sunspots, the most magnetic part of the sun, is approximately 3,000 Gauss. MRI machine is up to 70,000 Gauss. The strongest steady magnetic field produced in a lab is 450,000 Gauss. Highly magnetized white dwarf star is up to 1 billion Gauss. Typical neutron star is approximately 1 trillion Gauss. Can you imagine now how strong the magnetic field of a magnetar is? I guess not. To sum it up, a magnetar has a magnetic field approximately 100 to 1,000 times more powerful than a neutron star, and a billion times more than what we can produce in lab, and trillion times of more than sunspots that it sink. How are magnetar forms? One possibility is that they form from a merger of two stars. Recently, a team looked at this idea by creating computer simulations of merging binary stars. Unlike most models, their simulation include the effects of magnetic fields. They found that when two stars merge, they can produce a larger star. Such large main sequence stars are known as blue stragglers. The simulations showed that the turbulence produced when the two stars merge can create extremely strong magnetic fields. Thus, when the blue straggler eventually dies and collapses, the simulations show it could produce a magnetar. The stronger the magnetic field gets, the more violent an electric charge pushed sideways by the magnetic field. Scientists can build a machine that creates a magnetic field stronger than 500,000 Gauss and survives longer than a fraction of a second. Magnetic field used in medical MRI scanners are much weaker than 500,000 Gauss and are perfectly safe when properly used. Magnetic fields that surpass about a billion Gauss are so strong that they compress atoms to tiny needles, because the electrons that fill most of the atom are forced by the magnetic field to spin in tiny circles. When the magnetic field gets stronger than about 500,000 Gauss, objects will get ripped to pieces by intense forces. And now let's move on to gravitational forces. Gravitational force is a force that attracts any two objects with mass. We call the gravitational force attractive because it always tries to pull masses together. It never pushes them apart. Probably the most famous force of all is gravity. We humans on Earth think of gravity as an apple hitting Isaac Newton's on the head. Gravity means that stuff falls down, but this is only our experience of gravity. In truth, just the Earth pulls the apple towards it. The apple pulls the Earth as well. The thing is, the Earth is just too massive that it overwhelms all the gravity interaction of every other object on the planet. Every object with mass exerts a gravitational force on every other object. G is the universal gravitation constant, which is our world equals to 6.674 times 10 to the negative 11 meters cubed per kilogram per second squared. Mass m1 and 2 are the masses of the two objects. Newton's second law, F is equal to ma. Bigger objects exert a stronger gravitational force than the small one. With everything on the top of the formula, the bigger its volume, the stronger the force. Big mass, big force. The strength of the force is inversely proportional to the distance squared. The farther away an object is, the weaker the force. The closer, the stronger. Can you imagine life without gravitational force? I guess not. Gravitational force surrounds us. It is what decides how much we weigh and how far a basketball will travel when thrown before it returns to the surface. The sun's gravity keeps Earth in orbiting around it, keeping us at a comfortable distance to enjoy the sun's light and warmth. It holds down our atmosphere and the air we need to breathe. Gravity is what holds our world together. Gravity is what holds our planet in orbit around the sun and what keeps the moon in orbit around Earth. Gravity not only pulls mass, but also it pulls light. Albert Einstein discovered this principle. Black hole. Black hole is a place in space where gravity pulls so much that even light cannot get out. The gravity is so strong because matter has been squeezed into a tiny space. Now let's move on to tectonic stress. Tectonic stress is the stress that is placed on tectonic plates, which causes them to run into each other or move apart. Tectonic plates are the large pieces of lithosphere that move under the Earth's surface. These plates slide and collide into each other, which creates mountain formation, trenches, earthquakes, and volcanoes. Plate boundaries are where two plates meet up and contact each other. Fault. A fault is formed in the Earth's crust as a brittle response to stress. Generally, the movement of the tectonic plates provides the stress, and rocks on the surface break into response to this. Faults have no particular length scale. If you whack a hand sample-sized piece of rock with a hammer, the cracks and breakages you make are faults. At the other end of the spectrum, some plate boundary faults are thousands of kilometers in length. The sense of stress determines the type of fault that forms, and we usually categorize the sense of stress in three different ways: tension, compression, and shear. Handily, these three senses of stress also correlate with the three types of plate boundaries. Tensional stress happens at divergent plate boundaries where two plates are moving away from each other, while the compressive stress happens at convergent plate boundaries where two plates move toward each other. Shear stress is experienced at transform boundaries where two plates are sliding past each other. And now let's move into pressure gradient. Pressure gradient is a way to describe the difference in atmospheric pressure from one location to another. You can think of this as how much the air pressure changes as you travel from one specific location to another. The greater the difference in pressure between the two locations, the greater the pressure gradient. The physical interpretation of the pressure gradient within planetary atmosphere, including the Earth, is a vector pointing roughly downwards because the pressure changes most rapidly vertically increasing. The value of the strength or norm of the pressure gradient in the troposphere is typically of the order of 9 Pascal per meter. Horizontal pressure gradient is a two-dimensional vector resulting from the projection of the pressure gradient into a local horizontal plane. This horizontal pressure gradient force is directed from higher toward lower pressure. It is particularly orientation of any one time and place depends strongly on the weather situation. At mid-latitudes, the typical horizontal pressure gradient may take on values of the order of 10 to the negative 2 Pascal per meter, although rather higher values occur when meteorologically within meteorological fronts. Now let's move on to our last subtopic, which is radioactive environment. Natural radiation is everywhere. Radioactivity is a part of our Earth. It has existed all along. Naturally occurring radioactive materials are present in its crust, the floors and walls of our homes, schools, or offices, and in the food we eat and drink, in the air we breathe, and our own bodies, muscles, bones, and tissues contain naturally occurring radioactive elements. Man has always been exposed to natural radiation, arising from the Earth as well as from the outside of Earth. The radiation we receive from outer space is called cosmic radiation or cosmic rays. We also receive exposure from man made radiation, such as X rays, radiation used to diagnose diseases for cancer therapy, fallout from nuclear explosive testing, and small quantities of radioactive materials released to the environment from coal and nuclear power plants are also sources of radiation exposure to man. Radioactivity is the term used to describe disintegration of atoms. The atom can be characterized by the numbers of protons in the nucleus. Some natural elements are unstable. Therefore, their nuclei disintegrate or decay, thus releasing energy in the form of radiation. This physical phenomenon is called radioactivity, and the radioactive atoms are called nuclei. The radioactive decay is expressed in units called becquerels. 1 becquerel equals 1 disintegration per second. One type of radiation is alpha radiation, consists of heavily positively charged particles emitted by atoms of elements such as uranium, radium. Alpha radiation occurs when an atom undergoes radioactive decay, giving off a particle called an alpha particle, consisting of 2 protons and 2 neutrons. The nucleus of an atom of radium-226 contains 88 protons, 138 neutrons. Radium-226 undergoes alpha decay to form different elements, radon-222 and an alpha particle. These are some of the properties of alpha particles. Slow and heavy particles travel at 5 to 7% of the speed of light, mass approximately equivalent to 4 protons. Alpha particles, because they are highly ionizing, they are unable to penetrate very far through matter and are brought to rest by a few centimeters of air or less than a tenth of a millimeter of biological tissues. Some of alpha particles, some uses of alpha particles are have low penetrating power, but this provides a range of useful application. Smoke detectors. Americium 241 is commonly used in ionizing smoke detectors. Smoke that enters the detector reduces the amount of alpha particles that are detected and triggers the alarm. Static eliminators typically use alpha particles from polonium to remove static charges from equipment. Some alpha emitters are being investigated for their potential use in unsealed source radiotherapy to treat cancer. And the second type of radiation is beta radiation. Beta radiation takes the form of either an electron or positron, a, posit- a particle with the size and mass of an electron but with a positive charge being emitted from an atom, that is positron. Beta particles are high speed electron or positron that are ejected from the nucleus by some radionuclides during a form of radioactive decay called beta decay. Beta decay normally occurs in nuclei that have too many neutrons to achieve stability. These are some of the properties of beta particles. Mass, which is half of 1,000 of the mass of a proton, and carry either single negative or positive charge. Their light mass means that they lose energy quickly through interaction with matter and have a haphazard path as they move through air or other materials, much less ionizing than the alpha particles, and generally do less damage for a given amount of energy at disposition. Typically have ranges of tens of centimeter in air, dependent, and a few millimeters in materials. Now, what causes some radionuclides to emit beta particles? Beta minus particle emission occurs when the ratio of neutrons to protons in the nucleus is too high. An excess neutron transforms into a proton and an electron. The proton stays in the nucleus and the electron is ejected energetically. This process decreases the number of neutrons by 1 and increases the number of protons by 1. The conversion of neutron to a proton actually changes the radionuclide to a different element. Often gamma ray emission accompanies the emission of a beta particle. When the beta particle ejection doesn't read the nucleus the extra energy, the nucleus releases the remaining excess energy in the form of gamma photon. The decay of the technetium 99, which has too many neutrons to be stable, is an example of beta decay. A neutron, a neutron in the nucleus converts to a proton and a beta particle. The nucleus ejects the beta particle and some gamma radiation. The new atom remains the same mass number, but the number of protons increases to 44. The atom is now a ruthenium atom. And these are some of the uses of beta particles. Thickness detectors. It is also used in treatment of eye and bone cancers. Also in tritium is used in some phosphorescent lighting and used tracer for positron emission tomography or PET. The next type of radiation is gamma rays. Gamma ray is a packet of electromagnetic energy, a photon, emitted by the nucleus of some radionuclides following radioactive decay. Gamma photons are the most energetic photons in the electromagnetic spectrum. These are some of the properties of gamma rays. Gamma rays are a form of electromagnetic radiation similar to X-rays, distinguished only by the fact that they are emitted from an excited nucleus. Electromagnetic radiation can be described in terms of a stream of photons, which are massless particles, each traveling in a wave-like pattern moving at the speed of light. For each photon contains a certain amount of energy, and all electromagnetic radiation consists of these photons. Gamma ray photons have the highest energy
in the EMR spectrum, and their waves have the shortest wavelength. Gamma ray photons generally have energies greater than 100 K electrovolts. For comparison, ultraviolet radiation has energy that falls in the range from a few electron volts to about 100 electrovolts and does not have enough energy to be classified as ionizing radiation. The high energy of gamma rays enables them to pass through many kinds of materials, including human tissues. Very dense materials such as lead are commonly used as shielding to slow or stop gamma rays. Gamma radiation is highly penetrating and interacts with matter through ionization via three processes. One is the photoelectric effect, the second is the Compton scattering or pair production. Due to their high penetrating power, the impact of gamma radiation can occur throughout the body. They are, however, less ionizing than alpha particles. Gamma radiation is considered an external hazard with regards to radiation protection. Similar to all exposure to ionizing radiation, high exposure can cause direct acute effect through immediate damage to cells. Low levels of exposure carry a stochastic health risk where the probability of cancer induction rises with increased exposure. And these are some of the uses of gamma ray emitters. We have here the uses of technetium 99. We have also here the uses of americium 241. We've mentioned a while ago that gamma rays and X rays are similar in some way. Now let's know the difference between them. The key difference between gamma rays and X rays is how they are produced. Gamma rays originate from the settling process of an excited nucleus of a radionuclide after it undergoes radioactive decay, whereas X rays are produced when electrons strike a target or when electrons rearrange within an atom. And that's all for my presentation. This is Natalie Joy Guazan Morales, and thank you so much for listening. God bless and more power. Thank you.